I'm Adam Snow from the World of Football, and today we're going to fix the college football playoff. The college football playoff format was first introduced back in 2014, setting up a 4-team playoff bracket to determine a college football national champion. Then this past year, the format expanded from 4 teams to 12 teams, a format that I was a fan of to begin with. I thought it was cool that they expanded. I thought it was going to introduce a lot of great stuff, induce a little chaos, because I like me chaos in my college football. And we ended up actually getting a few things that were kind of problematic, I think, at the end of the day with the CFP. While at the end of the day, I do think the best team won the whole tournament, there were still some little things here and there I think could be fixed going forward to make this particular version of the tournament that they want to put on actually work and feel a little more, not fair, but feel a little more balanced is the word. Because I felt like it was a little imbalanced at times. And if you saw the college football playoff, you might have felt the same way. Maybe you don't, and you don't think it needs to be fixed. That's fine. But I'm going to go through some things that I think need to be changed with this. Starting with the clear issues I think we need to address. I think the seedings versus the final rankings was an issue, because if you look at that, the fact that they had to reseed based on the rankings just never really made sense to me. You know, the top 4 conference champions getting those top 4 auto buys was a little odd to me, because this also demoted a team that made it to number 11 in that final ranking. So you're saying that the top 12 teams aren't playing in this playoff, yet you're willing to kick out the number 11 team and promote a team who won a championship at number 16, which I don't know. I feel like Alabama shouldn't have been in the playoff anyway. I was happy about that at first. But if you think they are the 11th best team, then put them in. I know they had 3 losses, but that's kind of why I would have kept them out. But they were number 11, and you put them at number 11 for a reason. So I think they should stay in the tournament. And with Clemson at 16 jumping up into the playoff just to, because they had a conference championship, I think I would have been cool with them in the past. But now I'm like, you know what? Not all conference champions are created equal. And this leads me into my first fix, and that is no automatic bids. This would keep Clemson out and would have kept Alabama in. The final top 12 would have been your playoff teams in that order. So that's how they would have ended up being seeded. And to me, the conference title shouldn't guarantee you a spot in the playoffs. Here's what I think this bracket would have looked like if we would have made those simple little changes. Oregon and Georgia would have kept the top 2 seeds. Texas and Penn State would then get the other 2 byes. And then Notre Dame would still get a home game in round 1, but they would instead face Arizona State. Indiana would then get to host Boise State. Alabama would get into the playoff, but they would have to travel to Ohio State. And Ohio State obviously would still get to keep their first round home game. And then SMU would instead travel on the road in the first round to Tennessee, giving Tennessee a home game instead of Tennessee having to go on the road. Now, already this version of the bracket, after those simple changes, I feel like makes things feel a little more balanced. I like the idea of like an Indiana taking on a Boise State. That feels like a little more comparable matchup there. Not that all the matchups would always fall into that kind of nice, competitive balance there, but at least then, more often than not, I think you would get better matchups, I think, along the way. And that leads me into my next issue, and the next thing that needs to be fixed, and that is the reseeding. The fact that there was no reseeding in this past year's playoffs, despite the results ending up being like reseeding actually happened. If you don't know what reseeding is, the lowest remaining seed in the first round, in this case it was number 8 Ohio State, still ended up playing the highest remaining seed, that was number 1 Oregon, and so on and so forth throughout every round all the way to the championship game. But what if we didn't? What if instead of the upsets in round 2, all the upsets happened in the first round? Now, just roll with me here. With no reseeding, this is what the bracket would have looked like. The number 2, 3, and 4 seeds would have ended up playing lower seeds than the number 1 seed would have ended up playing, which feels like a slight to the top team in the tournament. Not that they should get the easiest road, but you're the number 1 seed, so I think your path should be a little easier than the rest. If this hypothetical situation of round 1 upsets had reseeding factored in, it would end up looking like this. Reseeding throughout the postseason, I think, would ensure a little bit more balance to the postseason play into their tournament. Just in case, chaos rears its ugly head into the tournament. But, me, I do like myself a little bit of chaos. But I feel like this could still, balance everything out when there is chaos. And that leads me to number 3 on my fix-it list, and that is to get rid of the committee altogether. That's right. People are dumb, people are biased, and the college football playoff for the last decade has been about, for the most part, putting the better brands instead of better teams into the playoff. There's been endless debate for the last decade about which team should be in the Final Four and who got left out. And it's always, I'm sure for sports talk and for TV shows, it's great fodder for discussion and stirring up controversy and all that. But I feel like we need to take the human element out of our playoff selection and go back to kind of an old BCS model, which is where I ended up kind of discovering this account on X called BCS Know-How, and they posted this great graphic of what a simulated BCS ranking would have looked like today, or well, when the rankings happened, opposed to the final rankings of the committee before the postseason. While there are enough similarities, there were enough differences to make me curious what a bracket would look like with this version of the top 12 teams. So here's 2 versions of this bracket. The first version would be the current committee's rules about the auto bid. So we're going to go back to having the auto bids and running it like the committee would for the playoff, but with the BCS system. So SMU would be left out while Alabama makes it in. The top 4 seeds would have remained the same as the original bracket. Clemson would travel to Notre Dame instead. Tennessee would instead go to another Big Ten school in Penn State. Alabama, now in the tournament, would travel to Texas. And Indiana would go from Penn State instead to Ohio State for a rematch of a game that they got blown out of during a few weeks prior. The second bracket here would be my preferred method of the seeding of teams as their rankings, still using that simulated BCS ranking. Clemson would end up being left out, and we would add Alabama to the mix. Ohio State gets the easiest round 1 matchup with SMU. Boise State would go to Indiana. Again, I like this pairing quite a bit. Alabama gets a chance to show that they belong in this tournament by taking on Penn State. And Arizona State would have to go on the road and prove their conference title wasn't a fluke against a solid Tennessee team. So for fun, let's see how my version of the bracket would play out. Most likely, don't at me if your team doesn't, make it for further in the bracket. It's just, kind of my assumption of what would have happened had things kind of played out after knowing how the playoff played out. So with reseeding taken into account throughout this bracket, Ohio State would easily handle SMU to move on to Texas. Arizona State would show that they have some fight and upset Tennessee to advance. And since they're the lowest remaining seed, would end up playing Oregon. Penn State would take care of Alabama to play Notre Dame, and Indiana would get by Boise State in a very fun game to take on Georgia in the next round. Round 2 would see Ohio State take care of Texas, and Oregon would get past Arizona State. Notre Dame would squeak by Penn State, and Georgia would probably spank Indiana. Ohio State would get the best of their rematch with Oregon, and Notre Dame would power past Georgia. This leads to a very familiar title game that I still think results in an Ohio State national championship. So there you guys have it. These are some of my fixes to help improve this version of the college football playoff. I have more overhauls in my brain, but those could be, something we put in a video down the road, because this kind of changes the whole system. The whole college football landscape would be affected with this other thing I got in my head. So we'll tackle that on another day. And we'll see if we get to it. What do you guys think? What would you want to see happen with this college football playoff? Do you like these fixes? Do you have your own fixes and suggestions? Or maybe, like I said at the beginning, you don't think it needs any fixing and it's perfect as is. Let me know down in the comments below. And I almost forgot, guys, I got one last fix, and that's number 4. Stop playing the game on Monday night. I swear to God, I'm tired of having to go to work the next day after watching a game that happened so late at night. Just stop it. Move it to Saturday where the games belong. Just tell the NFL, hey, we're going to take Saturday back. Move your playoff games around us. And I think the NFL may abide, even though the NFL is a tough cookie to crack. So that will do it for me today, guys. Again, I have been your host, Adam Snow. Be sure to like and comment on this video and subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments again down below, where you can also find in the description of this video are links to our social medias. We have an Instagram, X, Facebook. You guys can join us for all the fun football conversations over there. The links, again, down in the description below. Hopefully, we'll see you guys again, and you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you want to see in future videos. And until then, guys, have a blessed football day.